The shot echoed down the cul-de-sac like a thunderclap. It wasn't a firework. It wasn't a car backfiring. It was a gun. And the target was a little girl in a wheelchair. 7-year-old Emily, sitting outside her family's new home, was smiling seconds before it happened. Her arms were outstretched toward a blue butterfly. Her laughter floated through the air like music. Then came the shout. "You don't belong here!" And then came the shot. Neighbors screamed. A lawn chair tipped over. A mom dropped her iced coffee. And on the porch stood Karen Wexler, president of the HOA, fingers still on the trigger of a silver handgun, like she just swatted a fly instead of firing at a child. Emily's mother, Renee, bolted from the garage. Time slowed. Blood. On the armrest of the wheelchair. On Emily's sleeve. "Call 911!" someone screamed. Another neighbor, Dan from across the street, rushed over. He used to be a combat medic. He was already dropping to his knees. Emily's eyes were open. She was conscious. But everything else? Chaos. Renee cradled her daughter while shaking uncontrollably. Karen stood frozen, still holding the gun, like she didn't fully grasp what she'd done. "She was trespassing," she mumbled. "You people weren't approved." People stared. No one moved. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone finally had the courage to snatch the gun from her hand. And that was the moment Karen realized, maybe for the first time in her life, that she had gone too far. But what she didn't know was who Emily's father was. And that justice, real justice, was already on its way. 3 months before the shot was fired, the Harringtons thought they'd finally found peace. They had left the city behind, sirens, noise, broken elevators, and cramped hallways, to start fresh in a gated suburban community called Willow Bend Estates. It was supposed to be quiet. Safe. A place where their daughter, Emily, could roll freely down smooth sidewalks. A place with friendly neighbors, tree-lined streets, and kids riding scooters without a care in the world. That was the dream. Reality was different. From day one, Karen Wexler made it clear the Harringtons were not welcome. She was the president of the HOA. Ran it like a dictatorship. Clipboard always in hand. Phone always recording. Smile never quite reaching her eyes. She had rules for everything. Trash bins had to be color-coded. Flower pots could only be beige. No basketball hoops. No political signs. No flags unless it was an American one, standard size only. But the real rule? Obey Karen. Or pay for it. She called herself the culture keeper. What she really was? A control freak in heels. From the moment Emily's pink wheelchair rolled across the freshly paved driveway, Karen's lips curled into that passive-aggressive grin everyone had come to fear. "Oh," she said, eyeing Renee up and down. "Did the board approve this setup?" Renee smiled politely. "I believe so. We submitted everything. Accessibility ramp, the color code, yard plans." Karen just nodded once. Walked off. But from that day on, the signs began. HOA violation notices for unauthorized landscaping, even though the lawn was untouched. Fines for noise, from a birthday party that ended before 7 p.m. Passive-aggressive letters about decorative elements not in compliance, pointing to Emily's wind chimes and a garden gnome she loved. The family tried to ignore it. Tried to stay kind. Tried to blend in. But it became clear, they weren't just being monitored. They were being targeted. The neighbors whispered, but no one stood up. Not yet. Karen had them afraid. Conditioned. Afraid of fines, letters, gossip, or worse, retaliation. She'd ruined backyard plans, dog adoptions, even forced an elderly couple to remove their porch swing for aesthetic inconsistency. Renee started keeping notes. Photos. Screenshots. Emily? She was just a kid. She waved at everyone. Painted rainbows on the sidewalk. Read books under the tree out front. One afternoon she asked her mom, "Why does the lady with the short hair always look mad at me?" Renee didn't have an answer. But her husband did. David Harrington. He hadn't met Karen yet. He worked long hours, often gone before dawn. But he'd heard enough from Renee. Just give it time, he told her. People like that burn themselves out. But Karen didn't burn out. She burned through. And 3 days before the incident, she left a note taped to their garage. This property and its decor remain inconsistent with HOA standards. Continued non-compliance may lead to board review. Please consider relocating if adjustments cannot be made. That was the last straw for Renee. She took the note. Photographed it. Sent it to David. He didn't respond right away. He was on base. David wasn't just Emily's dad. He was a decorated U.S. Army major, stationed nearby. He held a quiet authority. Trained to keep peace, but also trained for war. He told Renee he'd handle it when he got back. But he never got the chance. Because just 3 days later, Karen pulled the trigger. It was supposed to be a normal Sunday. Warm breeze. No school. Renee trimming hedges. Emily sitting at the edge of the driveway, painting rocks, her latest obsession. She had a little setup on a foldable table. Acrylic paint, glitter, a water cup, and her favorite rock she named Captain Pebble. She waved to neighbors as they walked by. Everyone knew Emily. She was sunshine in motion. Or in wheels. At 10:17 a.m., Karen's silver SUV pulled around the bend. Slow. Controlled. Like she was patrolling her personal kingdom. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just watched. Then she parked. In front of her own house. 6 doors down. But she didn't go inside. She stood there, holding a manila folder and her phone, watching Emily paint like the child was vandalizing city property. Renee noticed. Wiped her hands on her gardening gloves and called out, "Good morning!" Karen didn't reply. She walked. Deliberate steps. Toward them. Emily looked up. "Hi, Miss Karen!" Karen didn't return the greeting. Instead, she stopped 3 feet from the girls' table and said, "This isn't a craft fair." Renee blinked. "Excuse me?" Karen waved the folder. "You were sent multiple notices. HOA policy clearly states, no unauthorized displays, decorations, or furniture visible from the curb. That includes card tables. And sidewalk chalk. And," she sneered, "children's projects." Renee stood. "She's just painting rocks." Karen leaned forward slightly. "She's displaying clutter. And drawing attention to a property that already violates multiple codes." Emily's smile began to fade. Renee took a step forward. "This is harassment." Karen smiled tightly. "It's enforcement. You may be used to chaos, but Willow Bend Estates has standards." That's when Emily asked softly, "Are we not allowed to live here?" Karen turned her head slowly. Then said with full venom, "You are not HOA material." That line pierced the air. And then she reached inside her purse. At first, Renee thought it was her phone. But it wasn't. It was a small silver handgun. Renee's breath caught. "Put that down," she said, voice sharp, maternal instincts flaring. Karen didn't lift the gun all the way, just enough to make a point. Enough to threaten. "Then move her," Karen said coldly. "Before someone gets hurt." Emily froze. And then the butterfly landed. A small blue one. Right on the corner of her paint cup. Emily gasped in joy. She moved her arm gently, like she didn't want to scare it off. That's when it happened. The gun went off. A single shot. Pop. Not loud like in the movies. But loud enough. The paint cup tipped. The wheelchair jolted. Emily screamed. Renee lunged. The rock table fell over. Neighbors screamed from porches. Dan, the ex-medic from across the street, leapt the hedge like a soldier under fire. The gun clattered to the sidewalk. Karen just stood there. Blank. No remorse. No panic. "I warned you," she muttered. By the time Renee had Emily in her arms, there was blood, small, but real, on the girl's shoulder. A graze. The bullet had clipped the metal bar of the chair and nicked her skin. Renee was sobbing. Emily was crying. The butterfly was gone. And Karen? Karen just turned and muttered, "This is what happens when people bring their problems where they don't belong." But what she didn't know was that David Harrington had just pulled into the neighborhood. He saw the sirens. He saw the crowd. And when he saw the blood on his daughter's arm, something inside him changed. The soldier stepped out of the SUV. And everything was about to change. The SUV door slammed. David didn't sprint. He didn't shout. He walked. Like a man who trained his whole life to stay calm when the world went mad. Combat boots hit the pavement with weight. He scanned the scene in seconds. Emily in Renee's arms, blood on her sleeve, a fallen table, neighbors wide-eyed and frozen, and Karen, just standing there. He stopped 10 feet from her. Karen finally turned. "Who are you?" she snapped, as if she hadn't just fired a gun at a child. David didn't answer. Not with words. He slowly pulled a badge from his pocket. Held it at chest level. U.S. Army. Active duty. Special operations. Karen's jaw tightened. Still, she didn't get it. "Oh, military. Good for you. That doesn't give you the right to threaten me." He didn't move. Didn't blink. But his voice? Low. Precise. Deadly. "You fired a weapon at my daughter." Karen scoffed. "It was an accident. She startled me. And she's not seriously hurt. That chair probably absorbed most of it." "That did it." David stepped forward, fast. In a blink, he was in front of her. Close enough to make her flinch. But he didn't touch her. He just spoke. "You are currently standing over the child you just shot. In front of 20 witnesses. You made a verbal threat. You discharged a weapon. And you're still talking like this is a parking violation." Karen tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. I didn't mean to." "You drew a weapon on a minor," he said, "because of a folding table. And sidewalk chalk." Someone behind them whispered, "She's done." David turned toward the nearest neighbor. "You got video?" The woman nodded, raising her phone. "Send it to this number," he said, pulling a card from his wallet. "Then back up. This is a crime scene." Karen looked around, finally realizing. Police lights reflected off the windows. 2 squad cars pulled up. Officers jumped out. Karen's eyes widened. "Wait. No. I was defending HOA standards." An officer pointed to the gun on the ground. "Is that yours?" Karen stammered. Yes. But she wouldn't move." David cut in, facing the cops. "She fired it at my daughter. 7 years old. Disabled. In a wheelchair." The officer's hand was already on his cuffs. Karen stepped back. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. You're under arrest for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on a minor," the officer said calmly. Karen spun toward David. "This is harassment. I run this community." David looked her in the eye one last time. "You don't run anything anymore." The cuffs clicked shut. Karen shrieked. Neighbors clapped. Phones recorded every second. As she was led to the cruiser, she shouted, "This whole neighborhood is going to regret this." But no one answered. The door slammed behind her. And just like that, the reign of Karen Wexler, HOA president, was over. But for David, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about something bigger. Karen's mugshot hit the local news within hours. The headline read, "HOA president arrested after shooting disabled child over community standards." It didn't take long for the story to explode. Local channels picked it up first. Then national outlets. Parents were furious. Veterans were furious. People across the country wanted to know how a neighborhood enforcer with a clipboard and a gun got so much power, and why no one stopped her sooner. But David didn't waste time watching TV. He was on the phone. calling every number in his chain of command. Every legal contact he'd built over the last 17 years of service. He didn't want a scandal. He wanted change. The charges against Karen weren't small. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Endangering the welfare of a child. Intent to cause bodily harm. And thanks to multiple video recordings, witness statements, and her own public threats, the case was airtight. She was denied bail. The judge looked over the file, then looked directly at Karen and said, "You are a danger to your community. I don't care what title you held." Inside Willow Bend, the dominoes started falling. Karen had handpicked the entire HOA board over the years, people too timid to challenge her, or too self-serving to care. But the shooting changed everything. David filed a motion with the county to freeze HOA authority, citing public safety concerns. Within 48 hours, an emergency vote was held. Karen was permanently removed from all leadership roles. The HOA was placed under third-party audit. Homeowners who had been silent for years came out of the woodwork. One by one, they shared their own stories. A family fined $1,000 for a toy left on the lawn. An elderly woman forced to repaint her front door 5 times. A veteran evicted from a community event because his wheelchair blocked the buffet. Karen had ruled like a dictator in a sundress. Now her legacy was in ashes. Renee, once fearful and reserved, stood up at the next public HOA meeting, packed to the walls, and said, "We didn't move here to escape the city and find another form of control. We moved here for our daughter. And we're staying. Because she deserves to be seen, respected, and safe." The crowd stood. Applause echoed through the clubhouse. Later that week, David received a letter from the mayor. Not just an apology. A commendation. For remaining calm. For seeking justice through the law. For showing what true leadership looks like, even outside of uniform. The neighborhood began healing. Karen's house went up for sale. Quietly. Quickly. Below market value. No one said goodbye. Emily healed faster than expected. Physically, it was a surface wound, a graze. Stitches, bandages, and a week of rest. But emotionally? That kind of healing takes time. 4 days after the shooting, she didn't want to go outside. The girl who once painted rocks and waved at every neighbor now hesitated at the door, asking questions like, "Is she still out there?" Or, "Will they yell again if I smile?" Renee stayed by her side, every minute. Reading to her. Laughing with her. Reminding her of the good in people. David? He did what he always did. He watched. Protected. Planned. But even he couldn't hide the crack in his voice when he said to her one night, "No one will ever hurt you like that again. Not while I'm breathing." What they didn't expect was the neighborhood's response. It started small. A bouquet of flowers on their porch, no note. Then chalk hearts appeared on the sidewalk in front of their home. "We love you, Emily. You belong here." A day later, a group of kids rang the doorbell, holding a giant poster. "You are HOA material." Each letter drawn in crayon. The next HOA meeting was different. No power plays. No glares. Just people, real people, showing up because they finally felt like they could. A vote was held. A new president was elected. Not someone loud or flashy, but a retired school teacher named Mrs. Grant, who had once told Karen to mind her tone, and been fined for it. Under her leadership, the first rule rewritten in the HOA charter was this: "This community does not discriminate against anyone based on ability, age, appearance, or means of mobility. Ever." Emily returned to school. Rolled through the halls with a new patch on her backpack, a gold star with the word Brave sewn into the center. And that weekend she asked her dad to take her to the park. She brought her paints, her table, and one rock. Just one. She painted it sky blue and wrote a single word on it. Enough. David sat beside her on the bench, watching the sun dip low behind the rooftops of Willow Bend Estates. He didn't say much. But he didn't have to. Because sometimes, justice isn't just what happens in courtrooms or headline news. Sometimes it's a little girl reclaiming her sidewalk. Sometimes it's a neighborhood finally saying, "No more." And sometimes, it's a father realizing that the greatest fight he'll ever win isn't in uniform, it's right there on the driveway, next to a folding table, with a child who reminds the world how powerful kindness can be.